On to the next disease. We have a 72-year-old woman, 72-year-old woman with a history of upper GI bleeding, who has developed anemia, an iron deficiency anemia, and she's on oral ferrous sulfate, oral iron replacement. Now, she's got diabetes, she's got neuropathy, she's also on amitriptyline for her peripheral neuropathy from her diabetes, her long-standing diabetes, and she's got treated for hypertension, for which she is on the calcium channel blocking agent nifedipine. She's on nifedipine. She's currently has constipation. Why'd you have to be so constipated? She's got constipation, and the stool is black. Black poo-poo. Black stool. Now, the question is, why is this young female, 72-year-old ovary-possessing person, why is this person having constipation is the big issue. Why? Why is she having constipation? Now, the black stool. How do we know whether this black stool, whether this is from the ferrous sulfate or whether it's from GI bleeding? She's got a history of GI bleeding. How do we know that the ferrous sulfate is causing the black stool? Ferrous sulfate, iron replacement. Only 2% of oral iron is absorbed. So since only 2% of oral iron is absorbed, it means that 98% of it is there to turn your stool black. How do we know whether her stool is black because she is constipated from the ferrous sulfate, or whether her stool is black because she's bleeding? Blood gives you black stool. Ferrous sulfate gives you a black stool because they're both iron. How do you know which one? Stool guaiac does distinguish. Stool occult blood testing does distinguish, because blood will be occult blood positive and ferrous sulfate is negative. In other words, elemental iron, ferrous sulfate, ferrous sulfate is guaiac negative. It's elemental iron, the element iron. That's guaiac negative on a stool. The other thing is heme iron from blood, myoglobin, raw steak will cause guaiac positive stool. The other thing is blood is not constipating. Blood is cathartic. Iron is constipating and stops you up. Ferrous sulfate's like having black tarry toothpaste for stool, and it gets all gummed up. But blood is cathartic. All vampires have diarrhea. Now, diabetes is another reason for her to have constipation. Diabetic gastroparesis. Amitriptyline causes constipation. It's an anticholinergic drug. It's a tricyclic antidepressant. And calcium blockers cause constipation as well. Anticholinergic things cause constipation. Calcium blockers cause constipation because they inhibit the smooth muscle in the bowel wall. Remember that the bowel is a long muscular tube covered with epithelial cells. The bowel wall is a long muscular tube covered with epithelial cells, and calcium blockers inhibit those smooth muscle. Tricyclics inhibit it because acetylcholine stimulates the bowel, and tricyclics are anticholinergic. Diabetes, what's the major stimulant to bowel motility? Stretch. And if I can't feel the stretch, I don't move. I can't feel the stimulation to my foot, I develop a diabetic ulcer. I can't feel the you can't feel the stimulation to your penis, you develop impotence. The same way, they can't feel the foot, they get an ulcer. They can't feel the bowel, constipation. They can't feel Mr. Happy, and they get impotence. Ferrous sulfate just is non-absorption, and non-absorbed iron just gums up the bowel like thick, black, tarry, black toothpaste. What's the management here? Get off of half these drugs, and you will be fine. Off the amitriptyline, on to Prozac. Off the nifedipine, on to the other drugs for blood pressure. Should be on an ACE inhibitor anyway. Diabetics and hypertensive should be on ACE inhibitors. Should be on ACE inhibitors, not on calcium blockers. Clearly being taken care of by the American Malpractice Association. Alrighty. We're on now to colon cancer screening. Diarrhea, constipation. The major thing is most constipation, after you think about the drugs, opiates are constipating, anticholinergic drugs are constipating, calcium blockers are constipating. After you think about all of the anticholinergic drugs and the iron and the ferrous sulfate things, then the other thing that is constipating is simple, old-fashioned dehydration. More common than tricyclics, more common than calcium blockers, more common than ferrous sulfate, more common than opiates, is simple old-fashioned dehydration. If your stool is all rock hardy and not moving, have a glass of water and have some bran muffins and get unplugged. And dehydration is the major reason that people really are constipated. And hydration and movement will solve it. Every time you walk, your body is massaging your bowels. I'm walking, my psoas muscles, I'm getting a deep erotic massage of my colon. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, psoas muscle. Yes. Oh, touch my transverse colon. Oh, yes. And that's why people who are lying around in bed get constipated, because they're not having the stimulation to their bowels that they need. As people are lying around in bed, they get constipated. Just walking, massage, 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 like a washing machine. And the bowels move. That's a lot of what makes bowel movement go.